All over the American wasteland, there are many different settlements that house a wide variety of communities and interesting things to see. The beautiful neon skyscrapers and casinos of the New Vegas Strip, the blissfully ignorant residents of the unopened Vault 101, and the proud marketeers and scientists of the shipwrecked boat known as Rivet City. All of these places play a vital role in telling a story of what it is like to live in this post-apocalyptic wasteland and how life continues to thrive going into the future. However, out within Boston, one city is made to stand out utilizing an iconic monument of the pre-war. Housed inside of an old baseball stadium live the loyal people of Diamond City, surrounded by thriving shops, heavily protective walls, and posters of a massively popular sport that once helped people get together and unify under one team. This city is the new center of Boston, and within it has many people all with different tales and past lives, but at the same time has gone through some dark times that have not only shaped them as a community, but has shaped the whole of the Commonwealth as well. So what is the story behind this baseball stadium city? What has happened over the years? What goes on behind the green walls, and where is it now in the timeline? Well, in today's video, we will be exploring everything this city has to offer and looking at some of the tales told here. This is the story behind the city housed in a baseball stadium in Boston. This is the story behind the great green jewel known as Diamond City. Our story of Diamond City all begins with one team named as the Swatting Sultans, who based their home stadium called Fenway Park within Boston. This team was one of legends back at the start of the 20th century, as they would go on to win the World Series within the years of 1903, 1912, 1915, 1916, and 1918. However, after 1918, the team never found its sweet spot and struggled to even be in contention for the World Series title. That was all to change within the year of 2077, where finally the team in the home stadium, coached by Dusty Wilder and their lead star pitcher Matt the Middle Murtaugh, were just one game away from winning the World Series 159 years after they had last clinched victory. But just before that vital game, the Great War was to kick off. At first, whilst Boston as a whole wasn't directly hit by the nuclear bombs, unlike areas southwest of the city, local military forces would eventually go on to move into the area and seize vital locations such as the Mass Bay Medical Center. But that didn't last very long at all, as they would go on to be massively overwhelmed by rival forces, which would cause the whole of Boston's society to fall. Many survivors lived on after these events, however, with some scientists moving into the underground levels of the CIT campus, forming into their own faction, and others getting handpicked into nuclear bunkers known as vaults that all contained a variety of different things within them, some good and some horrific. By 2130, the whole of Boston was being populated once again by the descendants of the survivors of the Great War. Here they would venture into the pretty ruined city and saw the Swatting Sultans baseball ground as a solid foundation to seek shelter and use as a main trading hotspot, as it was near the center of the old city. Moving into this baseball stadium within Fenway Park, the residents there would build up their shelters and start making it their home. This whole stadium was able to stand out to all those within the area, as it was coated in a distinctive green color that was extremely visible on the tall reinforced wall, which earned the left field wall the nickname of the Green Monster. As more started venturing into the area and took up refuge in this new city, it would go on to develop more and more over the years, building up its own police force where each officer or guard would utilize the padded gear from the baseball stadium to protect themselves, as well as the old bats as weapons for if anyone gets out of line, modifying them at times as well. And not only that, but the city also started to build up their own public school, as well as a robust agriculture and industry, and were able to start bringing in a prosperous economy to the area, making it feel like humanity was back on the right track. With that said, this city is still technically a shantytown, looking really run down and composed of all scrap metal that can be found to assemble the buildings within the center, similar to other cities around the American wasteland, such as Megaton in the capital wasteland. But for the residents, it doesn't really matter how it looks. It is a safe haven away away from the dangers lurking within Boston itself. And thanks to the traders who have settled there is entertainment from the bars there, as well as their own unique Diamond City radio station, which the residents can listen to at all times. On top of that, it also has filtered water that they can drink and manage at all times, and a wide variety of shops to purchase things from weaponry, meat products, facial reconstruction and medical supplies, and even get a nice haircut from Kathy and John's super salon. But all isn't bliss within Diamond City itself though. Humanity's old habits are quite present here within the stadium walls. Class divides are extremely present for anyone who ventured into this area for the first time, with people living on the former baseball field, which is known as the lower fields, being the poor community with bare minimum in terms of bedding and protection from the elements, and the rich being housed up in the stands in their luxury apartments, looking down on those lower than them, as well as the main Diamond City market. Down on the lower fields exist the laborers, the craftsmen, farmers, and any of the other workers that do the day-to-day jobs to help the city function on a regular basis. Whereas up in the stadium in their apartments exist the caravan owners, the city merchants, and any other individual who holds a substantial income and major share in the city's wealth, being seen in good favor with the mayor and gets priority in any decision that is made here. This has led to further divides thanks to the recent appointment of Mayor McDonald, who exploited the divide favoring the elite that lived there and barely went down to the lower fields to meet with his own public. On the plus side to Diamond City, it is one of the only settlements within the Commonwealth that guarantees a free education to all children regardless of where they are from financially. It also houses a one-of-a-kind non-denominational chapel which is open to those from all faiths, giving them a quiet, safe space in which they can pray and worship their chosen God, which is open 24 hours a day and run by the extremely friendly Pastor Clements. That said, in recent years the chapel is being slowly overtaken by the children of the Atom, as they have earned the support from those within the lower field residency, as the church has regularly spoken out against the hoarding of resources that the upper stand has been doing over the years. Not only that, but the Church of the Atom also speaks out against the Minutemen, who claim they are also just a self-serving militia trying to take ownership of the city for themselves. These conspiracy theories raised by the church have certainly influenced the lower class of Diamond City. However, Pastor Clements strongly opposes them and will do everything in his power to stop their takeover of the chapel that welcomes everyone regardless of view and background. As for the rest of the city, its market is a sea of places to spend your precious caps. Fallon's Basement is a premier clothing store that sells a variety of pre-war attire at the best prices. On top of that, it also sells helpful outfits for anyone venturing out into the wider Commonwealth, such as hazmat suits. Within the center of the city is the Power Noodles bar, which was built up against the fusion generator tower, which is used to provide the city with cheap energy that keeps everyone going 24/7. With the Power Noodles bar being located in the middle of the city, it means it is the go-to place for food and is the most popular place in the city to just hang out at. The chef behind the noodle bar is a protectron known as Takashi, who utters only one single phrase to the people sitting at the bar, that being "Nani shimashuka," which translates to "What would you like to have?" The only downside to this restaurant is there is only one thing on the menu, and that is just plain old simple noodles. So the chef asking what you actually want is just a bit pointless. Over at Swatters, this place prides itself by saying it never runs out of bullets. Run by its owner Mo Cronin, this was his catchphrase, as he simply just loves saying it. Despite that, Swatters is renowned for selling specialized baseball equipment, and that's about it. Mo is certainly embracing the history of this location and selling off its equipment for a nice hefty price. For all your medical needs, Chem Eye Care is the place for you and is incredibly popular, all thanks to its owner Solomon. Selling all types of medical supplies and healing accessories, Solomon has convinced the populace living there that the benefits of his wares outweigh the risks massively, and because of that, brings in a good profit from all of his loyal customers. On the other side of that is Diamond City Surplus, which is operated by Myrna, with the assistance of her robot Percy to allow them to be open 24/7. Here you can buy a wide variety of what some people call junk, but she calls treasures, as well as sell your own. However, just stopping for a chat here might not be the best idea, considering Myrna is extremely paranoid about the events going on around her. So you either buy something from her or leave her be. No one really wants to upset someone who has a Mr. Handy working for them. For other medical needs, there is the Mega Surgery, which, despite the corrugated roof, is a state-of-the-art medical facility which also offers healing, cybernetic grafts, and even facial reconstruction. If you ever wanted to change who you are as a person to escape from a threat or just to change things up, Dr. Sun will be the one to do it, showing off his true human sculpting abilities. To also forget your problems of a past life or an event that might have happened, there are also the bars in the area, with one being the Dugout Inn, which is said to be the primary watering hole in Diamond City. Most residents living within the city are said to go here during the week after a long day of working, and on most occasions is host to guests passing through the Commonwealth, providing them with luxury rooms to lay their head. Run by two Russian twins, most cannot tell them apart. However, as soon as they start to state their opinions on things and actually get to talking to others, it becomes clear who is who. The other bar within Diamond City is mainly reserved for the rich customers living within the upper area, the so-called snobbish denizens who sip their alcohol from this establishment known as the Colonial Tap House. Despite being for the rich clientele, this bar is not exactly the warmest of places to go visit. With its moody lighting and snobby guests, it can be quite a hostile place, and has certainly had its fair share of blood spilled on its floorboards, really going to show that whilst it might appeal to the rich and wealthy, that does not mean it is a better place to visit than the ones down below in the more common areas the city. As for food other than noodles, whilst most crops and brahmin are grown and looked after within the lower fields of the city itself, a lot of the produced foods are actually sent to the city from independent farms across the whole of the Commonwealth, with one of the most important farms being that of Abernathy Farm. This helps the nationwide economy flowing nicely as it brings everyone's trade together and helps the land flourish. But with all of that said, the biggest supplier is the Codman family, who own the whole of the orchard within the city walls, as well as the Codman family farms, letting them sell all of the Brahmin meat to the shop within the market known as Choice Chops, which gives the residents the opportunity to buy some of the most luxury meat the Commonwealth has to offer that is fully controlled and well produced by local butchers, and not just found on a roadside killed by mutants or natural causes. As Diamond City continues to thrive going into the 23rd century, many people are delighted to live there even if there are clear divides between the rich and the poor. The amenities allow them to be well entertained, well fed, and have regular work on the go, which helps everyone there sing the praises of their little home. But despite it being well organized and a safe haven for many, Diamond City certainly has had its dark moments that have completely shaped the way it is run by its mayor now and how it views many outsiders. This series of events all started within 2180, where the city saw an onslaught of attacks from nearby super mutants. This whole event triggered what was named as the Battle of Diamond City and saw countless deaths of people living there. Luckily for the people of Diamond City, the Commonwealth Minutemen were quick to rise up and take the fight to the super mutants, hitting them hard with all of their resources and force them back into other parts of the Commonwealth. The Minutemen became outright heroes because of this heroic defense of the city, and because of it, places all over the Commonwealth started begging for their assistance to help secure them from any attack that was happening on their land. For many, this was seen as a bad thing as it gave them confidence and power all over the land, with, as mentioned earlier, the children of the Atom believing them to just be getting away with whatever they want to and should not be supported at all. The super mutant presence wasn't completely removed, but it certainly gave Diamond City enough time to set up a perimeter around them to make sure they could not be threatened anymore. As of this time, the fens around the city are heavily guarded by all of the Diamond City guards with automatic turrets, taking out any unwanted presence that may venture into the area, whilst also protecting citizens and vital traders wanting to make it to the big green gate. After the small but devastating battle of Diamond City, everything went back to a form of normality, with regular traders venturing in and out and more housing being established within the city. However, as the year of 2229 came around, around, one event would have far more of a devastating impact on the people living there and also the people all over the Commonwealth. It was said here by one eyewitness, Eustace Hawthorne, that on a cold evening within May 2229, a single man named Mr. Carter entered the city and ventured into the local bar, joining the other citizens in their regular drinking routines. This one man claimed to be from out west, engaging in conversations with the people of the bar and telling regular stories about the state of the Commonwealth, explaining everywhere he had been to those bar-goers who may have never left their precious and safe city. As the evening went on, the group continued to drink into the night, enjoying the company of this stranger from out west. But suddenly, out of nowhere, the eyewitness Hawthorne states that Mr. Carter's smile suddenly faded in an instant and his cheek started to twitch. As it did, the man suddenly pulled out his revolver and without emotion or hesitation, shot the bartender Henry in the head. With Mr. Carter's cheeks still twitching, he would continue to fire on the people of the bar, executing some of the very people he shared drinks with and told stories to. Eventually, the city guards turned up in their full force and immediately opened fire on this crazed man who had just shot up the entire bar. But gunfire wasn't enough to stop him at first, as he continued his craze, tossing people left and right until finally, after tons of firing, he was put down by the guards and security. Mr. Carter was now dead, and as the guards went up to his body, they would start to inspect it to see who he was and why he did what he did. But shockingly, as they started their inspection, they would find that his corpse was filled with an undisclosed amount of plastic and metal, clearly displaying that Mr. Carter was not human in the slightest, but instead was an advanced synth created by the terrifying underground group of scientists from the CIT known as the Institute. Down within the Institute itself, word about this synth had gone to their director of the time, who was outraged at what had happened. Carter was not ready for field testing, he had not been approved at all, and someone had sent him to the surface without permission. This whole event had ruined the Institute's relationship with the surface, and now years of work to keep the organization out of the spotlight had been massively hindered, with many people from Diamond City and across the Commonwealth wanting revenge for what had happened during the event that was later named as the Broken Mask Incident. For the people of Boston, fear now runs amongst the communities living there, especially within Diamond City, with many people paranoid about who could be a synth and who is real. Mr. Carter was a turning point for the whole world, as it showed that synth technology had gotten to a point where you could not tell the difference between real flesh and blood humans and robots. And now everyone was paranoid about it, all thanks to one defunct synth named Mr. Carter. One small event that did see a glimmer of hope that this new technology wasn't that bad was the arrival of an experimental synth who went by the name of Nick Valentine. Instantly, the people rejected his presence in the city, believing him to be yet another synth from the Institute sent to kill them all. However, he was allowed in, doing their mundane duties whilst being hated on at all times by the public. This all changed dramatically, however, when Nick went on to track down and save the daughter of the mayor of the time, Henry Roberts, who had run away with a caravan trader. Unbeknownst to Roberts' daughter, these caravan traders weren't actually who they said they were, and had indeed sought her out to kidnap her and keep her for ransom. The synth known as Nick was lucky enough to stumble upon the kidnappers by pure accident whilst wandering the Commonwealth, and scared them all away by claiming he had a bomb and making occasional beeping sounds. Now with the mayor's daughter saved, Nick ventured back to Diamond City and explained everything that had happened to Roberts' daughter. This brave action by Nick earned him not only the respect of the city's mayor, but also the respect of everyone living there, with many claiming his detective skills were second to none, especially after he was able to do another case locating a man's wife who was believed to be dead, but in fact had just run off with her new lover. With so many praising his work, Nick Valentine stopped doing all the handiwork for the city and instead became the city's private investigator, setting up his own shop behind the main market. This whole series of events was just the start in repairing relationships between humans and synths, but it was indeed a very small step. There was still a lot of work to be done to repair what had happened on that cold night in May 2229. Despite the Institute now being the big boogeyman of the Commonwealth, especially in Diamond City, the people continued on building up their city despite their recent troubles. With more and more laws taking place within the city and paranoia getting worse year on year, this meant that a lot of people once living within the city or seeking solace from it were arrested and banished from the city completely. And because they did not want to keep them in the city jails, they sent them out into the Commonwealth, which might not have seemed like it was a good idea at all. This led to the events within 2240, where these banished criminals went on to set up a settlement known as Goodneighbour, who would embrace activities that were frowned upon within Diamond City itself, meaning that these two have become rivals to one another, both hating what they stood for. The citizens of Diamond City would go on to ignore this new creation and just try to focus on themselves. It was better that they were away from the city in their own area anyway, as long as they didn't try and invade them and take their own resources for themselves. This was all helped in 2272 when the Power Noodles bar was officially set up with Takashi at the helm, allowing people to get a good alternative meal and a brand new bright and bold neon monument in the center of the city. At the same time, however, two individuals named Piper Wright and her sister Nat also ventured into the city, wanting to set up their brand new building and business named Public Occurrences. This building was to be a place for them to write and print their newspaper that sole goal was to change the city for the better. Piper was at the forefront of this, as she wanted to make life more equal for the people living there, removing this rich and poor system where the rich looked down on everyone, and also talk about the things no one else wanted to talk about, such as the Institute and the synths of the Commonwealth. Setting up the newspaper was a good thing for a lot of people there, especially in the lower fields, who shared the same sentiments as her, wanting to remove the class divide from the city, and because of it, many people started buying into the paper, galvanizing a big support for fixing the city's problems. As the paper continued on printing more and more, Piper would target things such as the corruption within the Diamond City security, the poorly maintained infrastructure, and lack of maintenance on the wall separating the city from the wasteland, claiming that if the wall was not properly maintained with good investment, one day it would fail and they would be vulnerable to all of the dangers out there in the Commonwealth. But despite the overwhelming support for public occurrences, this would all once again change when a new mayoral candidate entered the public stage, that being McDonald, who would start to try and win over the public of the city to get him into power. Immediately entering the mayoral campaign, McDonald would start spreading aggressive anti-Ghoul sentiments, blaming them for most of their hardships and stating they are the reason the world has the problems it has. With this idea shifting the blame and jumping on the people's paranoia, McDonald was able to gain traction and won the election thanks to his focus on targeting the upper standing citizen votes. Immediately upon making it into office, McDonald issued the Anti-Ghoul Decree of 2282 in his inaugural speech. This speech riled up the masses and turned the Diamond City public into bitter, hateful individuals who did not want to live in the same city as the disgusting ghouls that also inhabit it, and because of that, a pogrom was carried out all over the city. Once friendly neighbours were now beating their ghoul neighbours and destroying their properties, and once they were all collected, all of the ghoul families were thrown out of the city by force into the surrounding ruins, with no resources or equipment, with the hope that they will perish. With the ghouls now out of the city, the houses that were now essentially empty were taken up by the remaining humans, which allowed the poorer residents to believe that McDonald was looking out for them, as he had got them precious homes for their families, homes that had been taken from them by the disgusting ghouls that once lived in their precious city. For the ghouls, however, they only had two places left to stay in, one being Goodneighbour, as they shared a common dislike for the people of Diamond City, and with most of them living there, they would create their own place led by their now ghoul leader known as John Hancock, who led the community under the philosophy of the people for the people. The other place being the area known as the Slog, which is seen now as a refuge for outcast ghouls and seen as an example of what could be achieved when a collective puts their mind to something and cooperate with the hope that one day this stereotype of ghouls being monsters will just fade away and they will be seen like everyone else. With Diamond City now under the rule of Mayor McDonald, life is relatively the same. However, the rich and poor divide is much higher as mentioned before, with McDonald caring more about what the rich think than those who live down on the lower fields. On top of that, many people seem to be disappearing, with the security not really trying to investigate what was going on at all, leading Piper to try and investigate things further through her activist journalistic ways. On top of that, it seems Piper has uncovered a dark truth behind the new mayor of their city. This man is not actually the real McDonald and is in fact a synth made by the Institute again. This was all displayed by Piper in her news story under the headline of The Synthetic Truth, which has once again fueled the fear that the Institute is manipulating things in Diamond City once again, with shop owners such as Myrna believing everything she reads within it. The truth is that the mayor is indeed a synth agent working for the Institute who has his task of infiltrating Diamond City and its people with his own personal goal of becoming a courser for the SRB. For the Institute, however, this is not possible as his body is incompatible with the lifestyle of a courser and his handlers view his level of independence as too much of a liability. And on top of all of that, they also see him as completely expendable. If he were to be discovered as a synth, he would be cut loose with an estimated survival time of just 2 weeks. For the synth McDonald, he best hope that his time as mayor in Diamond City is a long and prosperous one, because if Piper and her newspaper were to convince everyone that he were in fact a synth working for the Institute, his life would most likely come to an end after just a fortnight. The future of Diamond City is relatively unknown, however its growth and path would all depend on one lone individual, named the Sole Survivor, as well as who they sided with faction-wise on their journey. Despite everything though, Diamond City is certainly a proud safe haven for all those who have survived the brutal nature of the Commonwealth. It is a luxury place to rest your head, grab some supplies and venture throughout, and despite its paranoid view on the Ghouls and Institute, it is home to some friendly faces and loyal companions such as the people's favourite detective of Nick Valentine. If the world is to keep on building up more and more, trying to bring it back to a sense of normality, then it's most likely that Diamond City will also continue to grow with more and more accommodation, more resources and funding, and will easily become known all over America as the beautiful Great Green Jewel of Boston. But what its future is going into the 24th century will have to be a story for another day. For now, this has been the story behind Boston's baseball city. This has been the story behind the Great Green Jewel known as Diamond City. I want to say a huge thank you for watching this video, and a huge thank you to my patrons for allowing me to make them on a regular basis, including my small fishes, my big fishes, Anthony, Arto Krem, Christopher, Greg, and Last Persona User, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Video Game Player 75, Ico the Wolf, Sith Lord 906, A Frosty Vodka, Tomb of Ash, and Fiery Italian, my sharks Jason X117 and Whale Such Gaming, and my Megalodons Chernobyl Stalker, Hazy Thoughts, Rhoda C, and Sinus. But that is all for now. Thank you for watching again, and if you want more lore videos, check out my playlists below, and please do like, comment, and subscribe to help get these videos out there. And with all of that said, I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.